In the quiet town of Alder Creek, where everyone knew everyone, and front porches doubled as daily confessionals, nothing truly surprising ever happened. Life flowed at the pace of the wind over wheat fields, predictable, serene, and unshaken for years. But all of that changed on a Tuesday morning in late September, when a fire ripped through the Wallace family home, and a dog named Max ran straight into the flames. He wasn't just any dog. Max was a retired K9, a German shepherd once trained to track fugitives, sniff out danger, and protect his handler with every fiber of his being. After years of service, he'd been adopted by the Wallace family, the same family that now stood helplessly outside their burning house, screaming for help, and help came from Max, no hesitation, no command. He charged through the door, ears pinned, tail down, a growl deep in his chest. He knew someone was still inside. 8-year-old Lily Wallace hadn't made it out. The fire department hadn't arrived. The neighbors didn't dare go. But Max did. The smoke was so thick it choked even the cries for help. Glass shattered, beams cracked, and flames climbed the walls like angry hands. And then, out of the inferno, he emerged, dragging Lily by her shirt collar, teeth locked gently but firmly, paws singed and coat scorched. The paramedics said that if Max had waited even another minute, Lily wouldn't have survived. She'd passed out from the smoke. He found her in the hallway, curled up next to the fallen bookshelf that had blocked her escape. Photos were taken. News cameras rolled in. Reporters called it a miracle. People baked casseroles and brought banners. Children at the elementary school drew pictures of Max with capes and medals. And for a brief moment, the dog who saved a child became more than a pet. He was a legend. But legends have a way of making some people uncomfortable. It started with a whisper, a question at the grocery store. Didn't that dog used to be Police K9? I heard he attacked someone once. I don't trust dogs that are trained to bite. What if he snaps? The shift was subtle. The same neighbors who had once clapped for Max now crossed the street when he passed. Parents started murmuring. Lily's best friend wasn't allowed to come over anymore. And then came the petition. Quiet at first, then louder. Max doesn't belong here, not around kids. He's unpredictable. He's dangerous. Never mind that he had never harmed a soul in Alder Creek. Never mind that he had saved Lily's life. In the eyes of the town, Max was no longer a hero. He was a threat, and in the Wallace household, the unthinkable began to surface. Maybe they couldn't keep him anymore. Maybe it wasn't safe. But Lily knew the truth. She hadn't spoken a word since the fire. Not one. But her eyes followed Max everywhere, and if anyone had looked closely, they would have seen what she couldn't yet say. He didn't just save her life, he never stopped protecting it. The first real sign of change came just 3 days after the fire. Max, still nursing burns on his paws and wearing a loose bandage over his flank, sat quietly on the Wallace's front porch. He didn't bark at passers-by. He didn't chase squirrels or patrol the fence. He just lay there, watching the street as if waiting for something, or someone, to come back. Inside the house, things were quiet too. Lily hadn't spoken since the fire. Her voice, which used to fill rooms with curious questions and bedtime songs, had gone completely silent. Doctors said it was trauma, that some children went mute after near-death experiences, that it might pass. Her parents, Rob and Kate Wallace, didn't push her. They were just grateful she was alive. But the town? The town wasn't celebrating anymore. The petition started at the edge of town, among families who hadn't even been at the fire. One neighbor claimed Max growled at her toddler. Another said her cat hadn't come home since the fire, and she was pretty sure Max had something to do with it. The talk grew louder, crueler. By the end of the week, a town meeting was called. Rob and Kate showed up holding Lily's hand. Max stayed outside, leashed and calm, with a soft muzzle just to make people feel safer. He didn't flinch when people walked by. He didn't growl. He simply sat and waited. Inside, the meeting turned heated fast. "He's a liability," one man barked. "He's a working dog," Kate replied. "Trained, disciplined. He's never bitten anyone." Not yet, a woman muttered. Do we really want a dangerous animal around our kids? Another added. Elena Brooks, the town's animal control officer, tried to speak in Max's defense, but the room wasn't listening. Fear was louder than reason. Suspicion spread faster than facts. And Max, he just kept waiting. By the next morning, the Wallace mailbox was stuffed with anonymous letters. Some were kind, others weren't. Get rid of the dog, one note read in shaky handwriting. Before he finishes what the fire started. Lily saw the note. She didn't cry, she didn't scream. She picked it up, folded it, and placed it in Max's food bowl. It wasn't just whispers anymore. Local shopkeepers stopped chatting with Kate. A few children refused to sit next to Lily at lunch. Someone keyed the family car, and slowly, painfully, Rob and Kate began to talk about the unthinkable. We might have to let him go, Rob whispered one night. Kate turned to him, shocked. He saved her life. I know. Then how can we even consider, because if someone does something to him, if someone poisons him or hurts him, or worse, if he lashes out even by accident, he's gone either way, and we'll lose the town forever. Kate didn't reply, because she knew he was right. They tried to ease Lily into the idea. Max needs a break, Kate said gently one afternoon. A place with more space, somewhere he can heal. Lily didn't respond. Instead, she walked to the living room, took her drawing pad, and started sketching. A house, a girl, a dog lying on the porch, a son with a sad face in the corner. She handed it to Kate and walked away. No words. But all the words that mattered were there. Eventually, they made the call, not to a shelter, never a shelter, to a man named Sarge, a retired Marine and Max's original handler, living alone on a small farm about 3 hours away. He'd taken in a few canines over the years, giving them space, safety, and peace. When he heard Max's name, he paused. You're telling me that dog saved a child from a fire and now they want him gone? Rob sighed. It's complicated. No, it's not, Sarge snapped. It's cowardice. But he agreed to take Max in, for now. The morning Max left was quiet, no suitcases, no ceremony, just a leash, a duffel bag of supplies, and a silence too heavy to carry. Lily came outside, her arms wrapped around a stuffed rabbit. She stood on the porch as Sarge loaded Max into his truck. Then, without a word, she walked over. Max perked up. She placed her hand gently on his face and kissed his forehead. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a bracelet she'd made from yarn, blue and green, and tied it loosely around Max's collar. Still silent, she stepped back. Max let out a soft whine, then the door closed, and he was gone. The town moved on, as towns often do. New gossip, new events, Halloween decorations went up, Thanksgiving plans were made, but in the Wallace home, something was missing. Lily still didn't speak, and Max's bed remained in the corner of her room, untouched. On a distant farm, life was different for Max. Sarge didn't talk much. He didn't need to. Max understood routines. They walked the fence line, ate at sunrise, slept on the porch. He watched sunsets and waited for dreams that never came. Sarge saw the way Max stared at the road every time a car passed. He's looking for her, Sarge told his neighbor one day. Do dogs even remember people like that? Sarge looked at Max. He remembers her. Then one night Max barked. It was sharp, urgent, familiar. Sarge jolted from bed and ran outside. But there was no danger, just Max, standing at the edge of the yard, ears forward, body tense, eyes fixed on something far away. The road. Miles away, Lily stirred in her sleep. For the first time since the fire, she whispered a word. It was quiet, so quiet, but it was there. Max. The farm was quiet in the way only the countryside could be. No sirens, no car horns, no hurried footsteps. Just wind through the trees, the distant hum of insects, and the occasional bark from one of Sarge's other dogs. But Max didn't bark, not anymore. He had arrived with his tail down, his energy muted like a blown-out flame. He didn't run or explore the way some dogs did when first given open space. He simply followed Sarge from place to place, like a ghost drifting through someone else's life, Sarge noticed. The old Marine had worked with enough canines to know trauma when he saw it. Max wasn't just confused, he was grieving. Not from the fire, not even from being taken away, but from the betrayal that came after. Sarge didn't push him. He gave Max time, routine, and patience. They walked together in the mornings, tended the chicken coop in the afternoons, and sat on the porch every evening watching the sky turn purple and red. Some nights, Max would stand suddenly, alert at some phantom sound, stare down the gravel road for minutes at a time, then quietly lie back down. "You miss her," Sarge would whisper, and Max's ears would twitch as if to say, "Always." Back in Alder Creek, Lily wasn't getting better. Speech therapists had been called in, trauma counselors, family friends. But still, she didn't speak. She'd wake in the middle of the night and sit by the window for hours, clutching her stuffed rabbit and staring into the dark. Kate would sit beside her, brush her hair, and try to stay strong. "She's waiting," Kate told Rob one night. "For what?" "For Max." Rob sighed. "But what can we do?" Kate didn't have an answer. Neither of them did. Meanwhile, life on the farm began to change Max. Slowly, then suddenly. It started with the chickens. One afternoon, a stray coyote approached the coop. The other dogs barked wildly. Max didn't bark, but he moved fast. Sarge saw him streak across the yard, put himself between the fence and the predator, and stand still like a stone wall. The coyote hesitated, then backed away. Max didn't chase it. He just returned to the porch, sat beside Sarge, and resumed his watch. "You've still got it," Sarge said softly. Word of Max's presence spread quietly through the county. A few officers who had worked with him years ago came to visit. They brought treats, old gear, even a framed photo of Max during a drug bust that had made local headlines. "He's still sharp," one officer told Sarge. "Some dogs fade after retirement. Not him." But Sarge only nodded, because he knew Max wasn't waiting for recognition. He was waiting for a reason. One morning, that reason came, a knock at the door. A young deputy stood on the porch, nervous and slightly out of breath. "Sarge," he said, "we have a situation." Sarge raised an eyebrow. "Go on." "There's a girl, 8 years old, missing since last night. We've combed the area. She was last seen near a hiking trail with her father. He tripped, got separated. She ran ahead and never came back." Sarge blinked. Max stood beside him now, ears forward, tail stiff. "And you came to me?" Sarge asked. The deputy hesitated. "Actually, I didn't." He did. He held up a photo on his phone. It was Lily. In Alder Creek, the search had already started. Helicopters circled. Volunteers walked shoulder to shoulder through the woods. Officers shouted into canyons and caves, hoping for an answer. But hours passed and no trace of Lily was found. Kate was hysterical. Rob tried to hold her together, and in the center of it all, silent and still, stood the man they never expected to see again. Sarge, with Max. The town went quiet the moment they arrived. Whispers rippled like a storm through the crowd. "Is that? They brought him back? He's dangerous. No, wait, he saved her once. Maybe he can again." Sarge didn't say a word to the crowd. He just unhooked Max's leash, looked him in the eye, and gave a single nod. "Find her," and Max moved. He didn't hesitate. He sniffed a discarded jacket, circled once, then took off through the trees. Sarge followed. 2 deputies flanked him. And behind them, at a cautious distance, so did Rob and Kate. They moved quickly, dodging branches, slipping on wet leaves, hearts pounding. 20 minutes passed. Then 40. Still nothing. But Max didn't slow. His nose led them across a dried creek bed, through a narrow ravine and up a steep incline covered in roots and mud. Then he stopped. Sarge caught up, panting, boots soaked. Max stood completely still. His ears were up. His eyes locked on something in the distance, and then He barked once, loud, sharp. Sarge followed his gaze, and there, clinging to a moss-covered boulder, her ankle caught between two rocks, was Lily. Kate screamed. Rob bolted forward. She was alive. Scratched. Cold, but alive, and she wasn't crying, she was whispering. One word. Over and over. Max. 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 Sarge dropped to one knee, radioed for medics, and then looked at the dog sitting beside Lily, tail wagging slowly, head bowed. You found her, he said. Max didn't react, didn't gloat. He just leaned forward, nuzzled Lily's cheek, and sat beside her until the medics arrived. Back in town, silence fell like snowfall. No one knew what to say. Some were ashamed, others relieved. But when the ambulance drove in, lights flashing, doors swinging open, and they saw Lily sitting up, holding tightly to Max's collar like a lifeline, the truth hit them all at once. The dog they feared was the reason she was still alive. The moment the ambulance pulled into Alder Creek, everything stopped. For once there were no whispers, no pointed fingers, no hesitant glances, just silence, thick and suffocating, as townspeople lined the sidewalk watching a dog step down before anyone else. Max moved with purpose, not pride. His eyes scanned the crowd like they always had, calm, alert, calculating. And then Lily stepped out, wrapped in a gray blanket, face smudged with dirt and tears. But she was alive, and walking, slowly, with Max's leash in her tiny hands. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone dropped their phone. Someone else clapped a hand over their mouth. And still, Max didn't react. He just stayed close to her side, like he always had, like he'd never left. Inside the medical center, Lily was checked for injuries, sprained ankle, mild hypothermia, bruised ribs from the fall. But what shocked everyone more wasn't the state she was in. It was what she did when she saw the nurse. She spoke. Not a scream, not a cry, but a sentence. I told him where to find me. The nurse blinked, stunned. Who, sweetheart? Lily looked. Toward the hallway, where Max was sitting patiently outside the door. My dog. Word spread fast. That night, the local paper published a front-page headline, Max the canine hero saves Lily. Again. But it wasn't just headlines this time. It was faces, changed ones. Neighbors who had once crossed the street to avoid Max now approached slowly, guiltily, whispering things like, thank you and we were wrong. But none of that mattered. Not to Max, and not to Lily. Because what came next would crack the town open for good. 2 days later, a follow-up investigation began. Sarge had insisted Lily didn't just wander off. She ran from something. He told the sheriff. Lily, when gently asked, nodded. I saw someone in the woods, she whispered. Can you describe them? Asked the deputy. Lily hesitated. Gray hoodie, beard. He had a scar on his hand. Kate's face went pale. Rob leaned forward. You're sure? Lily nodded, and then she added, it was the man who said Max should go away. Martin Klein, local contractor, father of 2, known for hosting barbecues and volunteering at the town fair, also known for being one of the loudest voices calling for Max's removal. He had signed the petition, spoken at the town meeting, pushed the idea that Max was dangerous. Now, according to Lily, he had been waiting in the woods near the trail. No one wanted to believe it, but then the police searched his shed and found children's shoes. Girls. Jackets. A locket with the name Samantha etched inside, linked to a missing child from 3 years ago in a neighboring county. Everything stopped again. Only this time the silence came with shame. Klein was arrested without incident. He didn't speak much. But when he did, he said, the dog ruined everything. That was enough. For days, Alder Creek was a town stunned into reflection. They had tried to get rid of Max, called him dangerous. And all the while, the real danger had been living among them, smiling, grilling burgers, coaching t-ball. And Max had known, he'd always known. The town council reversed its earlier resolution. Max was officially recognized as a community hero. A ceremony was planned, a plaque ordered, a children's book commissioned, but none of that compared to what happened in the elementary school auditorium 3 weeks later. The Voices of Courage event had been planned before the fire, a talent show with a message. Children encouraged to share stories of bravery, big or small. Lily signed up last minute. When her name was called, she walked to the microphone slowly, her legs still stiff from the sprain. Max walked with her, off-leash. She stood at the center of the stage, blinking at the lights, and then cleared her throat. "My name is Lily," she said, voice soft but steady. "This is my dog, Max. He doesn't talk, but he listens better than most people do." The crowd chuckled, gently. "When I was scared, he found me. When I was hurt, he stayed. When everyone else was afraid of him, he still protected me." She looked down at Max, then back at the crowd. Sometimes people think heroes need to wear capes or carry badges, but sometimes they just have fur, and all they want to do is stay close to the people they love. She paused. "And sometimes we have to listen to those who can't speak, because silence doesn't always mean safety." The room stayed quiet for a long moment, and then came the applause. This time, loud. This time, real. And Max? He barked. Just once. It echoed through the hall like thunder. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Max sat on the Wallace's porch again, the same place he had sat before. Only now, he wasn't alone. Children rode past on bikes, waving. Neighbors dropped off treats and toys. Someone left a new collar in a gift bag. But Max didn't care about any of that. He just watched the street and waited for Lily to return from school. When she did, she ran toward him without hesitation, dropped her backpack on the lawn and wrapped her arms around his neck. "I told you," she whispered. "You found me." The news of Martin Klein's arrest hit Alder Creek like a bolt of lightning cutting through fog. For a town that prided itself on unity, safety, and shared casseroles at potlucks, the truth was more than devastating. It was disorienting. No one could fathom how someone like him, a man with a white picket fence and a smile that greeted every mailbox, had hidden something so vile for so long. But there was something even harder to face. They hadn't just ignored the warning signs. They had silenced the one creature who tried to expose them. The local sheriff's department released a statement the next morning. Martin Klein was now the lead suspect in 3 ongoing missing persons cases across 2 counties. The evidence found on his property, clothing, personal effects, a private journal, was enough to reopen cold cases that had haunted families for years. But it wasn't just what he had done. It was how calculated he had been. His involvement in the petition against Max had been strategic. He had stirred fear, fanned it, and used it to drive the only real threat to his secrets out of town. Max, the dog who had never bitten, never barked without reason, never wavered. In the following days, something unusual happened. People began leaving handwritten notes on the Wallace family's front porch. Not demands, not petitions. Apologies, folded pieces of lined paper, scribbled in ink and pencil, some anonymous, others signed in full names. "I didn't know. We were wrong. Thank you, Max. I'm sorry I was afraid." Some came with drawings, from children, crayon portraits of Max in superhero costumes. One note came with a homemade dog biscuit shaped like a gold medal, and slowly, the bitterness in the air began to lift. But for Lily, the turning point came days later. She hadn't said much since the school auditorium. Her speech at Voices of Courage had stunned the town, but after that the quiet returned, not out of fear, but from reflection. Max stayed close, always near, always listening. But there was one thing still locked inside her, and it needed to come out. It happened on a rainy Saturday. Lily stood by the window staring at the droplets racing down the glass. Max sat behind her, tail curled around his paws, head tilted slightly. Then she turned and said it. "I saw him." before the fire. Kate, sitting nearby with a cup of tea, looked up. You, what, sweetheart? Lily took a step forward. Mr. Klein. He was in our yard. Kate blinked. When? 2 days before the fire. The room went still. I told Max. I didn't say it, but I knew something was wrong. Max knew too. She lowered her voice to a whisper. That's why he went into the house. He wasn't just saving me. She looked at Max. He was protecting me from him. Rob called the sheriff's department immediately. A detective came that afternoon. Lily recounted everything. Where she saw Klein, how she felt, how Max reacted. It wasn't just a fire rescue. It was an intervention. Max had sensed the danger before it fully arrived, and no one had listened, except Lily. The district attorney later confirmed that Klein had been near the Wallace property days before the fire. A vehicle matching his had been caught on a traffic cam 2 blocks away. Combined with Lily's testimony and the evidence, charges escalated. Arson, attempted kidnapping, endangering the life of a minor. Max hadn't just saved Lily twice. He had stopped a predator from striking again. The mayor of Alder Creek called for a town gathering the following week. No politics, no ceremony, just a moment of truth. They met in the school auditorium, the same place Lily had once stood under the lights. This time, it was Max's turn. The room was packed. Parents, children, officers, reporters. Even those who had signed the petition were there, many holding flowers, others too ashamed to meet anyone's eyes. At the center of it all stood a podium with a single plaque, to Max, who listened when no one else did. Then, Lily stepped up. Her voice was stronger now, more certain, but still tender. Max was the only one who didn't stop believing in me. When I couldn't speak, he stayed. When no one listened, he heard me anyway. She paused. I'm not mad anymore, not at you, not at anyone. Because now, you all hear him too. And then, with hands that once shook from fear, she took a medal from a velvet box and slipped it over Max's neck. The dog didn't move, didn't bark, just sat there, steady as stone, tail tapping the floor once, and the entire auditorium stood in applause. Later that evening, Lily curled up on the porch, with Max beside her. I think I'm okay now, she whispered, but just in case. She placed her old stuffed rabbit between them. Stay with me a little longer. Max nudged the toy gently with his nose, then lay down, one paw resting protectively near her leg. It rained again the next morning, but this time it didn't feel sad. It felt like a washing away of everything old, everything misunderstood. And as the rain tapped the roof of the Wallace home, a girl and her dog sat beneath a blanket, safe in their silence. Because some truths didn't need words, they just needed time, and one dog who never gave up. Six months later, the town of Alder Creek held its first ever Day of Honor. Not for politicians or celebrities, but for a dog. Max. The community center was decorated with paw print streamers and hand-drawn posters. Children wore t-shirts with Max's face on them. Someone even made a cake shaped like a German shepherd. But Max didn't care for any of that. He cared about one thing, that Lily was there. She stood by his side in a blue sundress, her voice no longer a whisper. Her speech had returned slowly, first in pieces, then in full sentences. But she never rushed. She let the words come when they were ready, just like Max had always done with her. At the front of the stage, the mayor held up a small plaque. Today, we recognize a hero who never needed to speak to be understood. He didn't ask for attention. He didn't seek praise. He simply did what needed to be done. And in doing so, he reminded us all what loyalty, love, and instinct truly mean. The crowd erupted in applause. Max, as always, remained calm. But his eyes, those deep, intelligent eyes, scanned the room as if counting every heartbeat, every familiar face, every soul he had helped protect without them ever knowing it. Later that night, back at the Wallace home, Lily sat with Max beneath the old oak tree behind the house. Fireflies blinked in the dark, and the hum of summer wrapped around them like a soft blanket. She leaned against him, her fingers brushing his fur. "I used to think I needed words to be heard," she whispered, "but you proved that even silence can scream the truth." Max didn't bark, he didn't move, but his tail thumped gently against the ground. Lily pulled a small, folded paper from her pocket. It was a note. The same kind she had once hidden in his collar the day everything changed. Only this time, the words were different. "Thank you for listening when no one else did. Thank you for staying when everyone else turned away. You saved my voice. But more than that, you gave it back to me." She tucked the note into the side of his collar and smiled. "You can keep that, just in case I ever forget." In the months that followed, Lily began volunteering at a local animal shelter. She and Max visited nearby schools to talk about therapy dogs, canine heroes, and how animals sometimes hear what humans won't say. Max became more than a legend. He became a symbol, a reminder that some of the greatest heroes don't wear capes or uniforms or give speeches, they simply stay. And even when the world grows loud and cruel, there will always be that one silent figure at your side, watching, waiting, loyal. Hero with no words.